Okay, good morning. So we're up to Shin Chav Ches Seif Yud Gimel. Says the Mechaber, Kol Hazoriz Lechalel Shabbos. Anyone who is quick and enthusiastic Lechalel Shabbos b'davar sheyesh bo sakana, in the situation of pikuach nefesh, harizeh meshubach, he is praiseworthy. Afilu im mesaken imoy davar acher, even if in so doing he has some sort of benefit. Kagain shepeiras mitzoyde lahalos tinoik. For example, the Nebuch kid falls into the river or falls into a well. Shenofel a nahar v'tzad imoy dogim, and he takes a net and he fishes the kid out, and with the kid comes some dogim. V'chein kol kiyotze b'zeh. So be it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Kotan Lamed Ches. V'chein kol kiyotze b'zeh. Kagain nofel tinok lebar. A child falls into a pit. V'oiker chulya maleu, he sort of dislodges the ground there. Afal pishu mesakin b'madrega b'shas akirosa, even though he sort of fashions a step to save the child. Then again, so be it, because at the end of the day, that's not his kavon, and he's got to do what he can to save the child. Ninnal hadeles b'fnei atinoik, if a door is locked and there's a child, a baby is stuck in a room, then shove hadeles u'metzioi, you're allowed to break down the door to take the child out. Afal pi shehu mefatzel osom kamin eitzim sherum lemlocha, even if it means that it's going to get some firewood because you've got some nice logs, because you've got a broken door, and it has that sort of side benefit. Shenasim kamin nesarim okismin ladloka, you can use beams and bits of wood for a fire. Afilu hachimuta hashvira sheme yibas hatinok v'yomus, maybe the child will be scared if he's locked in a room, and he might chas v'lom die. V'lo amrinan she'efshel lekarkesh latinok be'goizim b'vachutz ad she'yaviu ha'mafteach. We don't say that, just keep the kid busy, bring him some nuts, which is the sweets of the day, and back in the times of Chazal. Don't say that you sort of feed him some sweets or slide some tangy taffies under the door to keep the kid happy. Even if it would benefit you to have the beams of wood in the previous case and similar, still it's allowed. At the end of the day, that's not your kavona. Your kavona is to save the child, and therefore it's all allowed. Okay, Yudalet. This is a famous case. So you've got a Choleh who's got in a pikuach nefesh situation, and the doctors assess that he needs to eat some meat. Shechtim lei, and there's no meat available, but there's a cow in the garden or there's a sheep in the backyard. Shechtim lei, we're allowed to shecht the animal for this Choleh. Ve'ein oimrim nachil nevela, and we don't say give him the vela to eat. So you got a choice. Are you over the issa of Shechita on Shabbos for this Choleh sheyesh bo sakana, or do we go to McDonald's and buy him a hamburger? So the halacha is you better to shecht and give him kosher food than the Choleh be over the isurim of eating nevela. But if there isn't time and he needs to eat straight away, and the nevela, the tray for meat, is there ready to go, and it's going to take a while until you shecht and get the meat ready, then if there's a delay involved, you feed him the nevela. So if it's possible, you give him the shechita, and if not, then you give him the nevela if it's too much of a delay. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Now, what is the reason? Why is it that it's better to give a Choleh sheish b'sakana basa shechuta, be shecht and violate that, rather than give him the vela? So different reasons given. Number one, Yesh Erim Mishum to Shabbos Hutra Etza Pikuach Nefesh. Remember, there's a famous machlokes if Shabbos is Hutra or Duchuya in this situation. So there are those who say it's Hutra, which means it's as if it's Sunday. It's totally free day. You can do what you want. It's as if it's not Shabbos today, and you can go shecht and you can do all these things. And therefore, like on Yontov you can shecht, today as well you can shecht. And you don't even give him an Issa Drabonan. Let's say that it's boss of a Choleh midrabanan, let's say, and you've got that available. You don't even give him that, and better to shecht and be over the Issa seemingly of Shechita on Shabbos, because we say Hutra, and therefore there's no Issa whatsoever. And better to do that than to be even over an Issa Drabonan of giving him something which is Os Drabonan. Mitamzeh. Avol harbe rishonim kosvu the Shabbos rak dechuyahi. It's not hutra, it's dechuya. It's just sort of temporarily put aside. El hatam hu deshema yiyeh kotz b'achilas nevela v'lo yechel v'yistakein. The concern is that you bring back the hamburger for this choleh, and he says to you, where did you get this from? And you say, well, I got it from McDonald's. Then he might sort of be repulsed and he will not eat, and therefore he'll be in danger. Well, Beis Yosef hevi oitan b'shem aran. A third reason, the nevela over al kol kazayis mimena v'chom me'issa lav de Shabbos. The problem with nevela is that every kazayis there is an issa involved, and Masha'en came with a Shechita. It's a one-off issa. So those are three reasons why better than the Mechaber Paschal is better to give him bossa Shechita to shecht rather than give him bossa nevela. Number one, there are those who say Shabbos is hutra. Number two, he might be kotz ba'achilas nevela. And number three, that's kol kazayis of nevela is an issa. Ulefizeh, bevadai mutav laver lahoshit le'issa drabon k'shenechal Shabbos be'issa skila. It's better if you can, better to give him an issa drabon rather than to be mechal Shabbos with an deraisa and be over an issa skila. V'nei machile oimer she'ein kotz ba'achilas nevela. Now, what if the guy says, well, actually, I've always fancied these hamburgers from McDonald's, and he's not kotz b'achilas nevela. V'yesh nevela mezumen lefanov, and he can get nevela ready to go in front of him. In mutar l'shachta avura, you're allowed to shecht for him because he'll sort of it's enough committed between the various reasons. So I'm b'achreinim v'al kol ponim in cotton. The achreinim deal with that. V'al kol ponim in cotton b'vad near the tov yosel achila bossa nevela v'lo yishchet avura b'Shabbos. But when it comes to a child, better to give the child bossa nevela rather than shecht for him on Shabbos. An interesting note 51. V'im ein nevela lefonenu. If there's no meat nevela in front of us, kosva chazanish. You don't say to a non-Jewish person, just sort of stab or stun this animal so that we can feed it to our child. Better to get the Yisrael to do a Meister Shechita rather than get a non-Jewish person to give him the Vela. If you can do things by a Nachri, since there's no Issa for the Yisrael to do the Shechita, rather than to avoid giving the Choleh Issa. Okay, carrying on the Mishnah Berurah. Kosav b'hagos Mordechai im tzarich la'tiach yain lavor Choleh. What if the Choleh needs some sort of wine, and you need to heat it up? Yemali Yisrael v'yochem hen Yehudi. The best way to do it is get the Yisrael to fill up the pot, and then get the Ein Yehudi to light the fire. Because Mutzav Sheis Nasrayim is better to be over Yayin Nesech than Chil Shabbos. Vatam Ayin Bebeis Mordechai, Bedarchi Moshe, Shekosov, Shekimin She'os Stam Yain in the Drabanan. Stam Yain is the problem, is this the Drabanan? V'gam Yisur Kal Ve'in HaCholeh Kotzboi. The Choleh is not going to be so disgusted as he would be with Nevela, etc. Lo Domin Nevela, V'lekach Mutzav She'yochim Ho'in Yehudi Im Muzumin Lefanov, Shelo Yisha Ali Dezeh, and therefore better you ask him to heat up the stuff, and even though there might be a problem of Yain Nesach, still that you avoids you being over an Issa Deraisa of cooking on Shabbos. V'chanal b'sif yud beis b'hago. V'su, and furthermore, the kaimanon could be yeridea, siman kuf chof hei, sif yud, the ein yudi ha-moilech kli posuach. If a non-Jewish person is carrying an open kli, v'Yisrael meshamre shelo yisnasech, and the Yisrael is overseeing it, checking that he doesn't he doesn't actually touch the wine, or he's not worshipping it in any way. Im kain efshel lacham alidei ein Yehudi bli nisuch. Then it's possible to warm it up by way of the Ein Yehudi b'li nisuch, because it might not become Yain Nesach. At the end of the day, if the Yisrael warms up the wine for a Choleh sheish b'sakana, do not protest the yesh al milismech ayin betaz sifkot hay. Okay, so that's we shouldn't know of it, but that's an important idea that if a Choleh needs meat on Shabbos, then better to shecht for him rather than give him the Vela for the three reasons we mentioned. Okay, Tesvav. Amduhu l'shtei grogars. If they assessed him that he needs two, sorry, if I missed one. Yeah, I missed one. Sorry, Tesvav. Amduhu per pirush, ispoined machlos v'shira, i.e. he has sort of an assessment by the medical team, haroifim, shetzorech grogeres achas. And they ascertain that he needs one grogeres, one fig. V'rotzu asara ve'heviu lo kol echad gregaris. And there are 10 people there, and all 10 run and they go and pick a gregaris, a fig off the tree. Kulam paturim. Each of those 10 are potter. V'yesh lem schar tov me'es Hashem. And they all get reward for it because they've done a mitzvah. Afilu hivri b'rishona, even if he eats the first one and then recovers. But at the end of the day, the other 9 also did a mitzvah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, "V'rotzu asara shekol echad choshuv shehu yakdim," because each one thought that they would be the one to give the fig that this choleh needs. If you look at 53, v'imkar le'echad sheyisa lahatzal nefesh, if you call somebody to say, go to say do a ma'aseh hatzalah, v'hikdimu acherim v'kva in tzorich sheyav, and then somebody else comes. Let's say you call, go quickly run and get the doctor. It's an emergency. Get in the car and run to the doctor and bring back the doctor to save this fellow. And meantime, the doctor just shows up, let's say. Do you have to send somebody to stop the guy who you've previously sent? So there's no need now. And you can tell the other guy to stop. At the end of the day, the guy you sent is not doing an issa in his traveling. You cannot be over an issa drabanon to save him because he's not doing anything wrong. You can tell a nachri to stop him, but you can't do anything more than that. Okay, weiter in the Mishnah Berurah. So they bring a gregaris. One of the 10 brings a fig from Rishus Harabim, a tolsha b'Shabbos. Afilu hivri b'rishona. Even if he recovers with the first fig, pirush heviu lo b'zeh achazeh v'kvar ochel mima shehevi lo rishon v'hivri. Afilu hachi kulam paturim mechatzos. They're all patur. Mishum to kol echot choshev shu yakdim. Each one thought that he would be the one to bring the gregaris and save the choleh. They get rewarded because they did a mitzvah. If you look at 54, so even though it transpired that it was a mistake, they're not considered in that category of a tayed b'dvar mitzvah who haven't fulfilled the mitzvah. The Gemara says in Yuma, v'chai bohem v'lo sheyomus bohem mistaber shekol ma she'osim b'shvil sofek pikuach nefesh nechshav k'maisa mitzvah. So therefore they're not punished. Let's just finish off. Tes Zayin, amdu l'shtei gregaris. They assess that he needs to have 2 figs. V'lo motzu el shtei gregaris b'shnei uktzin v'shalosh b'ukas echad. So it's a good quiz question. It's a Gemara in Yuma. He needs to have 2 figs, and you've got a choice. You either cut 2 branches, which has 1 fig on each, or you cut 1 branch, which has 3 figs. Which is better to do? Says the Mechaber, Karsim ha'ukutz sheyesh b'shalish. Better to do 1 ma'aseh avera, 1 ma'aseh trisha, and cut the branch which has 3. However, if there were 2 figs on one and 3 on the other, lo yachrisu al ha'ukutz sheyesh b'shnayim. Better to cut the one with 2 because marbe b'shurim. Hine the madava bahul the madava. Now, if you're trying to remember that, what did he say? What does the Mechaber say? What does the Gemara say? Don't just stop thinking. You don't want to delay in any way, so just get on with it if you're not sure. Says the Mishnah Berurah Mem Gimel sheyesh b'shalosh to bezem and ma'at hachilul. Because if you cut the branch which has got 3, you're doing 1 ma'aseh tlisha she'eina kaitz el pamachas. However, if there is 2 branches, one has 2 figs and one has 3, better to cut the one with 2. The ribu b'shir shelitzarech also. If you're, there's a ribu b'shirim, the one with the 3, and better to cut the one with 2. When we can't near a poshet, do adin in sham malachas, so too with all the other malachas. Going bishul v'chadayme, afilu im b'kedera achas also levashav lazes b'shar malachas rak mashet tzarech achshav b'tzimtzum. You only can do what you need to do for the choleh and not more. V'madov bahul ei medaktikim b'kachu chadilakame. But if you're getting confused, you can't remember exactly what the halacha is. Just make sure you look after the choleh. Okay, so say that.